Alrighty. Hello everybody. This is Kirusho here, and now, before we do begin, let us give a brief little review. In the last part, a number of events have happened. We had Izuku. Izuku discovered Albedo, broke out of prison, and got a device called the Ultimatrix. They also discovered that Eunice was not originally human. She is a byproduct of what happened whenever Melissa touched the capsule that contained the Unitrix. Eunice is actually a genetic reconstruction randomized from Melissa's DNA. And this was definitely weird. Now, Eunice, she's trying to come to terms with a lot of things. Especially because while Azimuth does not consider her to be a living being, she feels alive. She lives. She breathes. She feels cold. She eats. She bleeds. What would you call that? And Izuku, he fought Azimuth to keep her on Earth and safe with him. He cares about Eunice. She is someone important to him now. Deku, over the course of a week, has been trying to figure out how to handle a few things. He tested out some aliens out here in the woods and spent time relaxing away from his duty. However, when he got back to duty, a lot of things went bad immediately. He fought against Kyber's dog, managed to take it down and discover it has a device very similar to the Omnitrix, and this raised an eyebrow. He then found out a lot of other things. Kendo was getting involved in a few situations. She helped Eunice get a room next to his and take her stuff there. She was then the diplomat for a meeting between the Tetramans and the Incursions, and the Earth diplomats wanted to get out of the room because chairs were thrown, blasters were fired, and they thought they were going to die. So yeah, they're a little too squishy for some of the stuff happening in this room. And the little open diplomat, Kendo, she had experience with a lot of things happening here. She explained to them all she was a byproduct of a political marriage between Earth and the Lenopian species. Her father's Lenopian, her mother is an Earthling, and she tried her best to cool things out. The Emperors stepped out of the room, and Izuku, he was left there with the three. And honestly, he'd rather be fighting Vilgax or Albedo. That was going through his mind. Though, there was where he tried to step out of the room, and he talked to Bakugo about exactly what Argit did. This entire thing started because Argit sent a wedding dress to Luma along with a few outfits to her. And Izuku, he decided to do one simple thing. Hunt down Argit and put the fear of God in him. And after doing that, he came back. And he found that Eunice, she actually talked to everybody. She was close by and tried to follow Izuku when he ran off. And when she came into this room to talk to people, she found a way to figure things out. Everyone gets what they want, and it's not that hard. Diplomacy seems to be rather easy. And the idea that Eunice proposed was just to share them. And this was a rather interesting thing. All of them were reluctant at first, and Kendo wasn't sure how to feel about this. But Eunice explained it. It adheres to Luma's traditions. Atea, she gets the spouse and mate she wants for the Incursion Empire. And Kendo decided to try and jump on the bandwagon. She already helped Luma out with some advice. And after further explaining that she was actually Izuku's ex-girlfriend, who hated that they kind of broke up, because things got so weird, she decided to try and jump into this conversation. And Deku, he later heard about this deal. All four of them agreed to it, and Atea was willing to surrender the bomb if this agreement went through. And Deku wanted to take a few days to think on this, though Atea was going to hand over the bomb as a show of good faith. And Deku, yeah. When that happened, Albedo attacked the base. Deku and Albedo collided, and Deku found out exactly what an ultimate alien was. He found out his ultimate enemy might be Albedo, and he briefly lost his shit. Currently him attacking Albedo, and the two going back and forth. Deku got his ass handed to him before he eventually switched to atomics and began to gain the upper hand a bit. Though Albedo, he briefly went from Ultimate Swampfire to Ultimate Big Chill to create a wall. He then transformed into Ultimate Echo Echo, and the two, they continued to collide, up until Albedo told Izuku the situation where he teamed up with Vilgax. And this was really bad in Deku's mind. Albedo then went into retreat, nearly collapsing the entire base and leaving Izuku with an option: chase him and find out where his grandfather is, or save the entire plunder facility. And Deku chose option B, thinking that option 1 he could do after the place was secure. However, that wasn't the case, and a few of the plumber's helpers, they were hurt. His grandfather was taken, and as far as he knew, some people might have died. He went to go check up on Melissa and the plumber's helpers. He then had to talk to Bellicus and Serena, honor the rest of their deal, and use this as a chance to not only think about a plan, but think about the offer he was given. Especially because with the situation, the magisters in charge, he almost defied their orders, though he really should have. He listened to Mark against his better judgment. He didn't give chase. He just wasn't sure. Now then, with that being said, let's currently cut over to Izuku. Izuku, he currently does sit there, trying to think about a lot. His allies were hurt. He is worried. Albedo's power-up certainly was a challenge to face. And, well, he's got a lot in his mind. With his grandfather taken, this puts him in a spot. He's been debating it. He's been talking about it. And Deku, he currently just roamed the halls of the base. However, there's no one around. And Izuku, he does sit there, currently walking in the hallway and looking at the empty facility, turning his head and walking in a corridor, before he does hear Bellicus and Serena in his mind, talking about it. Izuku has already gone through a lot, and his break, has he had enough? No. Humans, we like input. That space, the emptiness, it's a little overwhelming. Being able to make sense of a lot of things, it helps us. Deku brings his hand up, running it over the wall. It's been, to him, over a day. So that means outside it's been less than an hour? Time is so confusing here. But if he's correct, that means he's had time to strategize. His main strategy right now is simple. Albedo wants the Omnitrix. Vilgax wants the Omnitrix as well. The two have similar goals. They aligned their loyalties, but their alliance is built on getting the Omnitrix. Once they have it, though, that is where things get trickier. Vilgax wanted the Omnitrix as a weapon of war. Albedo built the Ultimatrix, the ultimate weapon of war, harnessing an alien's full potential. Vilgax might betray Albedo, and Albedo doesn't even realize it. He might, but he's too arrogant, or just plain fucking stubborn to realize what he's done. There's also the idea that Vilgax might betray Albedo, take the Ultimatrix, and go through with the plan he had oh so long ago, making that army of aliens to conquer the universe. Honestly, some people never fucking change. And Izuku, he does think about it. Currently him walking into his room and sitting down. It's just, there's a lot to go through there. He can convince Albedo to turn on Vilgax, or he can incite some violence. But if he's correct, Vilgax's ship might be in orbit. There's also his lackey Siphon. And if he does have this final stretch of his plan, that does also mean he has a robot army backing him. He's got all those robots from whenever he was still a kid, right? He can just send them out. But he's got to have a plan. If he can find Vilgax's ship, if it's in higher orbit, then maybe get the incursions to make a distraction, an assault on the ship. Okay, certain species he knows can survive in space. Atomics might be able to. Maybe? Well, that's another story. He can go in all gun-ho and attack. Or they can try and do it a little bit peacefully. And only have the incursions and detachments attack the ship as a distraction? It's crazy, but he needs to either give himself up to Vilgax to get on the ship and find his grandfather, or he's got to make another plan. Okay. Echo? That's something. But Azimuth is... He can consult him. No. Azimuth would tell me it'd be better to destroy the Omnitrix. Okay. If I do need to... If it does come to that... He does know the destruction code. As long as it doesn't charge, it won't go into self-destruct mode and mess things up again like it did before. Okay. If he can do this right, then it will be okay. If he can do this correctly, then that means he can get his grandfather back, he can take down Albedo, and deal with Vilgax. It's gonna be definitely weird. Do you need some guidance on this? I think I have everything sorted, Bellicus, with this. Are you sure, Izuku? What about the other matters troubling your mind? You mean the idea that 4 ghouls want to share me? I honestly don't know. It solves a lot of my problems, but I'm not sure. We're talking about basically 2 political marriages that give Earth advantages. The incursions stop their self-destruction of our planet, and we get incursion technology, and the Tetramans, we get nearly indestructible technology, and that's a whole other story. I don't know how to deal with that. And then there's the idea that I want to get back with Kendo. And well, me and Eunice were weird, complicated. She's there to help me, and I'm there to help her. I'm falling back on her emotionally, and she's falling back on me emotionally now. I didn't know my life would get this complicated. If I go ahead with this is basically the entire reason me and Mina broke up. Because I might, no, not even I might. I'm taking back my ex, running around with other girls, but the only difference is they know. Plus, the fact is, it could be the best option, but I still don't know if I want to do that. I still want to talk to Mina. See how she's doing. Izuku, she did try to take your life. Yes, but she was unstable. She didn't know how to handle a lot of stress. I know a bit more with the Enidite transformation now. I can get it. A heightened emotional state, and they feel differently than humans. It's not just raw emotion, they feel with their entire being. Mina felt with hers. She's never done that before. Not before the first time she activated that spark thing. I see. Yeah. I want to talk to her. See how she's doing from a best friend's view, not a boyfriend. If she brings it up, maybe talk to her about it, but I don't know much else. Deku, hearing a sound. Him, gonna get out of his bed and stand, turning his head as the wall, it does go to fade, before it will appear as a screen. And Deku does see through the eyes of Alien X. Currently, Mark staying there, bringing his hand up and waving it in front of Izuku's face, asking if there's anyone there. And Deku does tell them. He's sorry to cut this short. If he does need their help, he'll call on them. They can make a deal. Though, he does want to talk to them real quickly about exactly what's happening. What do you mean? I mean exactly what's happening. You guys are giving me some tough decisions to make. I'll be honest with you on that. Some of them are tricky. So, if you two could, do you think that you can make decisions with each other on your own? Or do you think you still need me? Izuku, that is possible. Yes, it is. We still do debate when you're not here. We existed before you. Uh-huh. Let me know if you guys do come to some conclusions. We still have a lot to debate over and go over, but I don't know. You're giving me some rather tough decisions and I don't like some of them. So, what about adding an option to throw out the vote? Excuse me? Yes. Throw out the decision and rewrite things. Basically, change your mind. Celestial sapiens do not change their minds. Yes, but you find humans to be curious creatures. We learn, adapt, and change our minds all the time, as much as you guys would change the universe. Interesting. Yeah. In fact, you can consider changing the universe to be your way of changing your mind, if that's the best idea to put it. You don't leave it alone. You don't let it stay stagnant. You decide what you want to happen or what to change, and then you do it. I gotta go. Yes, this is an interesting addition. We will discuss this. Deku turning human. Before Mark does this one take a step backwards, asking about it. Jesus. You okay? Yeah. Sorry. It's been a whole thing. What is it? Izuku, the plumbers are having a meeting. The magisters want you to meet with them. Come on. Mark in a turn, and beginning to walk out of the room. Izuku following. And the two, they do make their way to the elevator before stepping inside, and heading up to one of the other levels. Mark talking about it. So, how is everything going with him? It's complicated. Complicated is correct. But I mean, with you. Exactly, Izuku. Mark, if you're gonna ask me if I'm okay after Mina, I don't know how to respond to that. Mentally, I'm a few months ahead. Not, oh god, nearly 2 weeks now, I think? Mark turning his head and looking at Izuku. What exactly does that mean? I'm over 3 months ahead mentally, Mark. Listen, I spent a lot of time as Alien X after me and Mina. She had me go through a lot. And right now, I'm just trying to think. I've already had a plan formed. I've had a lot of time. A whole day, in fact. Uh-huh. And how are you doing? I mean, with your grandfather. I'm doing fine. Pierce? Pierce is gone, Izuku. We don't know anything else. We just know that the plumbers that were with your grandfather, they were all injured. Many seriously so. And Alan is still in a coma. What do you mean? We found him in a lake. He was alive, but at the same time, we're not sure. He managed to get out, or someone managed to pull him out. That's still unclear. We just found him in the water nearby. It's believed that maybe one of the other helpers helped him. But with his biology, it's not looking too good. And that's a whole other story I'd rather not get into. The two walking out of the elevator and currently down the hallway. Mark still expressing a few things about the situation, and even giving Deku a brief update on Mina, somewhat saying she has been doing better on Anodyne, and he has talked with her lately. Now, there actually is where Deku is going to walk into the room and see a few people, them turning their heads and seeing Izuku. As Deku, he is greeted by 5 other Magisters of the Plumbers, one of which are human, and the others are all of alien species. And Deku, he doesn't stare on. As people, they do begin to take their seats and sit there before Izuku, talking about it. The current dilemma they're facing. They need to know more about this enemy, because the only thing they have is they seem to have some sort of upgraded version of the Omnitrix. And Deku, he does try to fill them in. Think of how he can do anything, how versatile his abilities are. He has aliens who are meatheads. He has aliens who are versatile. He has some for stealth operations, and he does have some that are, well, flat out just weird. And some that are just flat out powerful. Albedo has access to his playlist. Everything he has, Albedo has. And this Ultimatrix device, it makes it even worse. It takes it a step further. He doesn't know what it could do to species like Upchuck, or, well, even an Inodite. And there's also another problem. If Albedo does use it on an alien like Alien X, this could be bad. He's not sure if Albedo could convince Delicus or Serena, but he knows that he can make a deal faster than Albedo could, especially because he would try to do something first. If he can get to the watch before his first order of business is concluded, he'd win. But that's another story. Albedo avoids using Alien X potentially because of what happened to him. That's a whole other thing. He lost last time. It could be a trump card of his, but that's another story. And the people in the room, they do go to stop Izuku, asking him exactly if he believes he can take on Albedo and Vilgax the Conqueror, if the reports are said to be true. It'll be difficult, but not impossible. I have master control of the Omnitrix. I can do a lot. Also, I need to make things clear. I need my own team on this one. Excuse me. I need to act alone. I need all of you to listen to me. Fuck it. I know exactly what I'm doing, okay? I've fought both these two before on separate playing fields, and with them working together, their alliance is built on one thing. The Watch. Okay? If I can deal with both of them, lure them into a false sense of security, or just flat out trick them, I know what I can do. Albedo is egotistical and underestimates humans. He's believed before he can beat me and my friends. And we've all been through a lot since then. alright? I know it's speaking out of turn, but you all need to let me handle this. I'm going to deal with it. It's personal. If I do need help or additional forces, the plumbers can help. You can help me by taking down Vilgax's ship. Young man, you do know exactly that this is not warranted. Mark's sitting there, and beginning to see a lot of the plumbers in charge talk to Izuku. The magisters try to inform him. This goes beyond anything. Right now they're talking about Vilgax, the conqueror of worlds. The boy can't simply believe he can take him on. I did so whenever I was a kid. I had less control and more restrictions with the Omnitrix. Me, Mina, Mark, and my grandfather. It was just the four of us. We thought we won. And then I faced off against him later that summer. Afterwards, that Conqueror's battle, that was the last time I faced him. And right now, he decided to target my family again. This is simply not going to be stood for. I'm going to face Albedo, take him on, and take down Vilgax. If I need to, I'm going to take his life. And everyone, they do sit there looking at Izuku. And Mark, he does stare at this. Izuku's a far cry from that child he once knew. That little kid who was so scared of 6'6" and the Conqueror of Worlds. He remembers trembling in fear. And here the boy is talking about murdering the man who he's so afraid of. And the thing is, Mark honestly believes he could do it. And Deku, he does stare down the Magisters before he does express to them all. If they want to stand in his way, then they can. He's sick and tired of bureaucratic bullshit. If the plumbers are going to help, they would not stand against him. They'd stand with him. The incursion fleets and the Tetraman fleets, they said they are on his side. So, how about they do him a favor? They don't try to restrict him. He's already an agent. They're magisters. They are aware exactly his position. He's not standing for this. They're going to turn and going to walk out of the room. And right now there actually is where Mark does sit there. Everyone beginning to talk, as one of them, they do get a call at Izuku, talking about his insubordination. And Deku, he has a turn, as there is a massive flash of purple light. And Deku, he has to bring his hand up, currently him a bit on guard, as he does watch the light fade, and then there are two people standing there, Verdona and Mina. And Mina, she does a look around. Currently, her in her Anodite form, before there is Mark, who does go to stand there. And Deku, he does stare at the two Anodites. Before there is where Verdona is to walk over, expressing about how nice it is to see him again. Verdona? Nice to see you. Alive as well. Heard a lot of things. It's been a while. It has, hasn't it? I'd love to catch up. Mina turning her head and looking back at Izuku. And right now she does go to do one thing. She's going to transform back into a human. Her standing there right now in a robe. Or in a cowl. Cloak? Cloak. And she's going to see the way he's acting. And she's going to walk up. Currently, her making her way over to him and pulling him into a hug. And apologizing for trying to hurt him. And Deku, he has to bring his hands up. Him hugging Mina. And he has to express he's a bit over that. I heard about the situation. Grandpa filled me in. Her backing away. Albedo's back? Yeah, and it's worse than before. We're still dealing with that fucking prophecy. It's the ultimate enemy. Ultimate enemy? Her having her eyes widen a bit, and having that part click in her mind. He'll deal with his ultimate enemy. That does not seem to be very good. What about you, though? Are you stable mentally? I'm doing better. Just, I can explain more in a minute. Her gonna turn, expressing. She is Mina of Earth and Anodyne. She is here to help. Right now, they are going to take on Vilgax the Conqueror. And Deku turning, talking about it. He's already filled them in on a lot of things. He's got a lot of firepower backing him. And speaking of that, if she's gonna join him, come on. They've got to go get Bakugo and Kai. I'm gonna turn. Amina does gonna walk out of the room with Izuku. And Verdona does take on her human form, expressing to the plumbers. All of them might want to be careful. That is a pretty powerful duo. And Verdona does turn to Mark, before giving a brief nod and going to disappear. And right now the man stares at that. As that woman. She's definitely done a lot. She does care. In her own way. And there currently is Deku and Mina. The two are walking down the hallway. And she is trying to ask him exactly about what happened. It's complicated. He attacked during a meeting between the Incursions and Tetramans. Also, there's a lot to fill you in on. There is. Listen, I've gone over a lot of the things I saw. I'm sorry again if I didn't already say it. You did. Listen. Right now we're dealing with Vilgax and Albedo. The two teamed up and have Grandpa. We gotta get the team back together and figure this out. But before that, Deku turning and standing in front of her. We've got to have a talk. A talk. You mind melded with your future self, right? Yeah. How'd you know? I thought that's what you would do. I'm willing to mind meld with you right now. You'll see everything clear as day and know the situation. No, I didn't have a hand in it. It'll make things a lot more clear. Also, you'll feel a few things. What'll I feel? You'll feel how it was whenever I turn into Alien X. It's complicated to explain, but focus on that emotion for a minute. Notice how much time passes there, how potent it feels. That's not just something that happens. Focus on that for me. Her staring at Izuku. Bring her hands up and go to somewhat flinch before putting them back onto his head. And currently, her eyes begin to glow. And Mina, she does begin to see a lot of things pass. She expected it to be a few days. Maybe a very complicated, insane week. But no, it wasn't. Mina does stare at all this. And right now she's going to go through it. The emotions connected to Alien X, they're easier, a little more dull. And realizing how long this stretches out, how weird everything is, it does help. And then she sees Deku dealing with Ghost Freak, his small little mental collapse, and Eunice being there to hold him together. And then there's Eunice and the deal, all of it. Oh, her pulling her hands back. I didn't realize. Really? Hey, I didn't give an answer yet. It's just been complicated. I didn't know things would get this complicated. Uh-huh. Um, Listen, Izuku. Yeah? How about we just, we deal with that a little bit later, okay? I know. I wanted you to know. I didn't mean to hide things from you. No, Izuku, don't try to apologize to me. I was the one in the wrong. I'm willing to admit that. I'm sorry, okay? I don't know how many times you want me to say it. I don't need to say it at all. I was ordered by the Magisters to not tell you this stuff. I'm telling you now. I don't care about this anymore. We're still friends. You're still my best friend. Her stepping forwards and giving Izuku a peck on the cheek before she was going to walk past him and tell him, how about they deal with duty first? Emotions later? And Izuku does understand. And Deku, he is going to arrive at the shuttle bay. Currently Bakugo with his ship and going to walk down the ramp. However, when he does see Mina, he does want to be a little bit more intriguing. She's definitely a little different. And there currently is Kai. Whoever Mina came stepping aboard that ship, she honestly thought it might have been somebody else. And currently there is Kendo, who does get a turn. Currently her walking out in her plumber uniform and seeing Mina. Her eyes going a little wide. And, hey, her bring her hand up. And Mina does a turn, before giving a slight smile and waving at Kendo. This putting her a bit at ease, before talking about how they've got to deal with Vilgax. She can get them aboard the ship, but she needs something of Grandpa's, Izuku's grandfather's. Do they have anything? Not really. We weren't expecting you. The RV is still at the location. Let's head there. Bakugo getting everything ready and prepped for the ship to leave. And currently, there is where they do head out. It does begin to take a few minutes. However, when they do arrive, there is the area. Currently, the ship going to land, and Bakugo stepping out and looking around. It's still a battlefield. It doesn't look too good. And the plumbers are still putting the pieces back together. Deku stepping out and seeing this battlefield. Him seeing the smoking trees. The blood still being cleaned on the ground. And then there's the rust bucket. That old goddamn RV. It's broken. And Deku, when he does him stepping down the ramp, and him and his group do to head down there, people turn their heads. They try and tell Izuku about how it's an active investigation, along with the fact that this crime scene is being investigated for a lot of things. However, Izuku brings up his badge, telling them he doesn't know the situation. Besides, he's dealing with something else. Currently, him walking past them as they do try to maintain protocol, even with him. And Deku, he is walking over to the rust bucket. Currently, him stepping aboard and looking around. The rust bucket has seen better days. Definitely. Deku bringing his hand up and putting it on the fridge. There's markings here. Blaster markings? No. If this was Vilgax's handiwork, then these are laser beams from his eyes, right? I'm gonna turn, looking at the ceiling, or at least what remains of it. A third of it's been blasted away. The table is gone. The sink's still here, surprisingly. But a lot of stuff has definitely been messed up. He's not even sure if this thing will drive again. And that, it does make Deku a bit more annoyed. Mina stepping aboard. Her going to turn and see Deku. Just standing there. A bit deep in thought. Trying to prepare himself for what's to come. And Mina, she's gonna have her eyes glow. Her turning her head and trying to focus. Keeping her emotions in check. And right now she's gonna find Ken's badge. Before she's gonna turn to Izuku and bring it up. Talking about how if they can bring everyone together, she can get them to Ken. And they can find out where Vilgax is hiding. And Deku does her turn. Him going to walk off and towards the ship. And Mina, she might have her emotions in check right now, but she's not too sure if Izuku might. He's been dealing with this for years. And currently they do to walk aboard. Mina expressing about everybody about what to do. Currently them all going to walk up together as Kai, she is dressed in some plumber armor, along with the fact that she does have a pistol and a rifle with her. Talking about it. Okay, so now what's the plan? The plan's a bit simple. I teleport us to the ship, and we'll be right next to Ken. Then we can deal with a few things. You mean Albedo and Vilgax? Yeah. Though I'm sure he either has plans for me, or he doesn't know I'm on Earth. If him and Vilgax teamed up, then that does pose questions. Certainly does. Like, was he monitoring Earth after he'd lost, or are we gonna have to do a siphon? Pretty sure we're gonna have to do a siphon, Bakugo. Good. I was hoping to punch something. Bakugo, I think I can deal with siphon. Izuku can deal with Albedo, and you might have to deal with the robots. Mina, are you go with dealing with Vilgax? I can handle it. Besides, I've been meaning to get some payback. After last time? Yeah. The five, going to stand there. And Kendo does express. So where does that leave her? Yeah, I'm coming too. This is important. Okay. So you just help out Kai. If Bako can deal with Siphon, I can take on Albedo, Mina can take on Vilgax, you and Kai take on the robots. And if you can, maybe get my grandfather off the ship. He might not be in condition to fight. Are you sure? Yeah. We need to keep them distracted. If we can, that could be good. Find an escape pod. I'm sure there's one aboard. Right. Currently, all of them are going to stand together. Amina does have her eyes glow. The badge flying out of her hand and beginning to produce a purple glow. Her focusing, we're going to say an incantation. And this, it does begin to activate her spell. Them all going to teleport away as we do currently cut over to Ken. Ken does sit there. Him, currently, a bit messed up and in a cell. Him still trying to make a plan for escape. He's definitely between a rock and a hard place. With Albedo on the ship, that causes problems. He'd have to deal with Accelerate. With Vilgax here, he can fly. And last time he checked, Vilgax, he might be able to survive a trip into space. So there's definitely that as a problem. But where does that leave him? Dealing with a plan, trying to figure this all out. Okay, motherfucker. The old man still trying to devise a plan for escape. And there is actually Izuku, who currently is a teleport in with Mina, Bakugo, and the group. Currently, them all going to show up directly in the holding cell. And the moment Kenzo look up, Deku and Mina do come rushing over to him and bending down. Mina beginning to heal him as Deku does ask him exactly how he's doing. Izuku, good to see you. Mina, been a minute. You're gonna be okay, alright? Just give me a few more seconds. Deku asking, exactly how bad is it? Pretty bad. Though Izuku, they killed Pierce. How's the rest of them? They're not doing good, Grandpa. Let me handle this. No, Izuku. You have to let me. Vilgax is my enemy. Yes, Grandpa. But he teamed up with mine. I battled Vilgax before, and I won. Albedo, I was able to hold my own. However, that's another story. Izuku, Albedo's powerful. And Vilgax, he's got a few new tricks. Yeah, I'm sure he does. But Grandpa, let me handle this. Okay? Deku hearing a sound. Turning his instinct at Kendo, she already made her way through the bars and opened the cell door. Her going to express. Okay then, they need to hurry. They don't know how much more time they have before they're detected. And Deku, he doesn't understand. And we do currently have at the helm of the ship, where Albedo, he does sit there in ultimate form, talking about it. He's still trying to understand his whole plan. So he wants to conquer Earth. And best, Izuku? That would be correct. I've challenged this brat since he was a child. He's defied me and has annoyed me. Right. And you think that that will be best? I do. He's been a thorn in my side since then. He's made a mockery of me. And I will have my revenge. Yes, you will. But you remember our deal. Yes, I'm aware. The brat, once he is taken, I plan to kill him. And then I might prance him around as my trophy. The savior of the universe killed by the conqueror of worlds, Vilgax. That is enough already. However, he's quite the worthy adversary. You speak highly of a lowly human. I'm going to turn, expressing, and he goes to great lengths to try and rival one. He's certainly in the same boat. Perhaps. Though I don't pretend to be him. I'm simply trying to return back to being a Galvan. I thought I could best add with his creation. Though it did appear the universe had other ideas. The server on Primus is connected. Maybe so. However, I'm getting an alert. And Siphon, he does go to look up, expressing to Lord Vilgax about how there's been something going on in the holding cell area. And the man has a turn, expressing, take care of it. If the old man has tried to escape again, then this time, break his legs. They need him alive. They don't need him in one piece. And Siphon doesn't understand. Him flying him into the air and turning, before quickly making his way down the hallway. And we do currently have where the door to the area does get open. Siphon stepping into the room and turning his head. Him looking around and seeing that the cage, it's open. And he does go to try and focus. Him running over and looking at the other hallway. Him opening the door as they must have gone this way. And there actually is Deku, who does go to make his way back into the room. Him coming out of the wires under the ground and back to the computer before he does go to emerge and express to Siphon about how that's not entirely the case. Him turning his head, seeing Deku as Deku does a transform directly into Lodestar. Him pulling the ground panel up and smashing Siphon directly into the ceiling. As there is with the group, they do make their way out of this hidey hole. Now, Deku does go to express. Currently Siphon hitting the ground and Bakugo bringing his hand up, catching the metal plate and smashing it back down onto him. That? Okay, so what now? I looked at the network. You guys gotta go down the hallway. There should be more ships. All you gotta do is make sure to get to the hangar bay. Are you sure? I am. Vilgax Associated Worlds. He's using their resources. However, there's a ship there. Go down there. Afterwards, no, too dangerous. Deku Kuno Express, bring his hands up. Okay, they've got to go now. Him transforming again and currently staying there as forearms. Him walking past them and telling them to follow him. As they do begin to make their way to the hangar. And Vilgax, he does go to look on screen, seeing the situation, turning to Albedo and ordering him about what to do. He needs to go attend to their guest. And Albedo has expressed to Vilgax, he is going to take on Izuku Midoriya. He is not a lackey of his. Do not make the mistake again. And Vilgax is to sit there, currently him beginning to deploy drones that are going to slow them down. And we do currently have in the hallway Deku. He is running down at his forearms, and the moment robot drones began to make their appearance, he did begin to stomp them. Deku running past one as Mina does a blast it. Her bring her hands up and forcing a blast on the hallway. Them all being struck by the purple energy as they're moved directly to the back and smash into the wall. And there actually is Deku, who does a look down. Him having a plan. They need to override a ship. No. The logs never say anything about ships. They just say things about hangar base. Storage? Maybe. A way to deploy. A way to send things out? No. Vilgax's crew is mostly robotic. So, the chances of a ship are low. Very low. Deku transforming. And having the idea cross his mind. Though maybe he could jury-rig something. Him bending down and beginning to grab some of the parts. And everyone, they do see this little alien. Deku beginning to grab pieces of metal and pieces of technology. Him smashing them together and basically, well, Frankensteining some technology. And this, it does kind of alarm them. Currently Deku rebuilding a giant robot. And they do just stare at him. Deku going to turn Ricky and upgrade as he does, gonna move his way onto the robot, and then gonna take control. Them staring at him. And Deku, he has expressed to them about exactly what they need to do. Currently, him being struck by something as Deku, he doesn't be sent flying. The robot smashing onto the ground as Deku's turn. Him gonna look down the hallway and see Albedo. Him telling them what to do. Before he does, gonna make his way off of the robot and bring his hand up. Him clicking a button as it does go to activate. And Deku expresses to them, take this thing down there. It can do what Jury Rig can. And they don't fully get it. And Izuku, he doesn't bring his hands up, currently him transforming into an Anodite and blocking the hallway, as Albedo came running down it and smashing looking at the shield. And Mina stares on at this, her eyes going a bit wide, and Deku just throws his shield down the entire hallway, it ripping into the hallway as they yell for them all to run. Now, just understand, and Deku, he does hold the shield, Albedo expressing about how he really doesn't expect it to hold, does he? Huh. It's gonna have to. Besides, I'm going to kill you. It was simple. All you had to do was give up the Omnitrix. But you're greedy, and you couldn't even do that. You're saying that, Albedo. Though guess what? Deku bring his hand up and blast Santoki out at Albedo. And Albedo, he does go to move. Currently him going to jump up into the air as to transform again. Him, right now, staying there as Upchuck and having the blast shoot directly into his mouth. Him going to spin around and start another blast. Him striking the Pyronite, striking the Inodite shield as Deku, he does go be sent flying backwards. Him transforming Toki into a Pyronite and going to stand up with his Heat Blast, blasting Toki out at Albedo. And Albedo, he does immediately go to transform. Currently him countering as Big Chill. Before the two hot and cold beams do go to collide. And Deku, he is beginning to step forwards. Currently him generating more and more heat. And Big Chill does get to turn up the heat. Him bringing his hand up and smashing onto the Ultimatrix. Him transforming an ultimate Big Chill as a blast out with fire. And Deku, he does get struck by it. Him flying backwards as the fire does get to freeze over. And Deku, he does sit there. Before he does think exactly Big Chill. And transform. Him phasing through it as there actually is where he does be struck by Albedo. The two flying down to the lower levels. And Izuku, he currently does begin a battle with Albedo. Now, Izuku is trying to devise a plan, and he does have one, but it's really bad. Now, we do currently cut to Mina, the robot, Bakugo, and Kai and Kendo. The four are running in the hallway, and Bakugo, he is trying to take down as many robots as he can, and Kai currently does sit there, her bringing up her blaster and firing at the robots. Her cutting into them as the robot on their side, it does bring its hand up, it blasting out and firing at its former comrades. And this, it is highly intriguing. Currently, it with only one directive: get to hangar and build craft. And this, it is a very interesting thing. And Ken, he is looking at this creature, this automaton on their side now. Izuku's definitely turned into quite the handyman. Or maybe he's trying to think ahead. He's definitely proud of the boy. And we just won't smile. And the next is Kendo, who does gonna bring her hand up and fire out spikes at some of these robots, them firing into the creatures and going to explode. As the robots, they are being pushed back more and more. Their push to the hangar bay is highly successful. However, there is one problem. With Siphon taken down and Albedo dealing with Izuku, that leaves Vilgax free. And Vilgax, he already knew where they were heading to. He already began to shut down avenues and hallways leading to the hangar bay. He was forcing them down a tunnel he wanted them to go down. He knew their path already. And currently, this is a bit of a problem. And we do have Mina. Mina is leading the charge. And Bakugo, he is punching through robots. Him moving forwards and slicing through one with a sword. Him going to bring his arm up as he does return. Him grabbing the metal of the robot and transforming into a red sleeker mode. Him bringing his hand up and reforming his arm into a mace. Him going to bring up his other hand and enlarge it a bit, before he has to turn it into a sword. Him rushing forwards as he's being blasted by robots. The blast deflecting off of him, as he's slashing into one and bringing his hand up, turning and punching directly into it as it is sent flying. And Bakugo, he doesn't run through the door. Before there actually is where someone is a bend down and bring their hand up. Them smashing on the Bakugo and grabbing him by the head. And this is a lot more alarming. Them picking Bakugo up as Vilgax does stand there. And Mina does it to bring her hands up. Vilgax bring Bakugo up in front of him, expressing, she doesn't want to do that. And Mina stands there. The robot stepping forward and bringing its own hands up. Currently it following the directive, as is a blaster out at Vilgax, and Bakugo is struck in the back. Him going to deflect the blast from the panel he absorbed. Now, the blast is a split, it cutting into the hangar bay and into the ground. And Bakugo, he is thrown to the side, currently him smashing into a crate as he's dented to the metal. And Vilgax does go to express. Did he really think it would be that easy to escape? That he didn't think of a plan? He really is arrogant. He really has not learned. He has learned from their encounters. And Ken looks up at Vilgax, him expressing, you know, he did learn, though the kids did as well. Amina does a stand there, her stepping forwards and turning full Anodite, and Vilgax does stop stepping forwards, him staring at her and focusing on her. And Kai does a step forwards, her bring her hand up as Kendo does a throw up her hand, her throwing spikes out at Vilgax, and Kai seeing a blast looking at his eyes. And Vilgax, he does a bring up his hand, him slapping with the spikes and sending a blast to counter Kai's. It is being sent flying out and smashing into her gun. It exploding as is a center flying backwards in her body armor. Her hitting the ground and hitting the wall. As Kendo does stand there, her turning her head and staring at Kai. As Vilgax, he does stare back at the Anodite. And Mina does a flying up expressing to him that he is going to pay for what he did before. And Vilgax, he does a fly up, him blasting out at Mina with his eye beams. And Mina immediately does a counter with a full power blast of her Anodite power. Her seeing Vilgax flying backwards as he is smashing into the wall. Her bring her hands up and going to levitate some of the crates, bring them up in the air and smash them down into Vilgax. And Vilgax, he has him flying up through them. Him tossing one of them to the side as it is turned to Mina. Him flying forwards and bringing his hand out. Her bring her hand up and blasting at him. Him going to recreate his shield. Voice to bring his hand up and clash out towards her, hitting Mina directly and facing her flying. And Mina, she does stop herself mid-flight. Her moving back forwards as her hair is a whip around. It separating the tendrils and beginning to move towards Vilgax. One flying out at the man as he bring his hand up. Him blocking with his shield as it dent into it. And Vilgax does see his shield crack. And this definitely does mean something. Him staring on, as there actually is the robot, which does begin a move. It following the directive it does have. Build, 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 build. And currently there is Deku. Deku and Albedo are still colliding. And Albedo, he has decided to turn up the heat just a bit. Him going to send a blast of fire to Izuku. And Deku does go flying backwards. Him going to turn intangible as he does go to express to Albedo. You know, Vilgax is playing him for a fool. And Deku, he does continue talking. Vilgax is going to kill him. Doesn't he get that? Deku turning directly in a lodestar, expressing. The moment Vilgax does get what he wants, Deku ripping panels off the wall and sending them flying at Albedo, him turning intangible. He's going to take the Omnitrix. The moment that he's defeated and he is Lord of False Security, Albedo is going to lose. And Albedo stares at Izuku. And he does express more, flying forwards about how that's not true. He already knows what Vilgax will do, and he will play Vilgax for the fool he knows he is. And Deku, here's a stare at Albedo. Him going to transform directly into Wrath, as he goes smashing onto Izuku, and Deku, here's a throw his hands up. Currently, him going to send a panel flying to get Wrath and some smashing to the wall. And Albedo, he does send out a brilliant flash of light. Him sending two claws shooting directly into the wall and slashing onto it, stepping forwards as ultimate Wrath. And Deku does stare at that. You know, I know exactly what to do. The main man is not going to let some conqueror abuse him. He is not going to fall for some sort of stupid trick he's trying to play on his mind. And Deku stares at that. Albedo rushing forwards to Izuku, here's a transform. Currently him going to transform directly back into Heat Blast. Him rushing forwards as he's bringing his hand up, sending a blast of fire directly at Albedo's face. and Albedo is going to take the blow and bring his hand up, clocking Deku across the jaw as Deku is sent flying backwards. Him going to transform, drinking a squid lift, and he is to even himself back out before looking back at Albedo. And Deku, he has to send out a telepathic attack. And Wrath, he has to bring his hands up, screaming as he his head before smashing onto the ground. And Deku does tell him, he's being played for a fool. Does not he see that? And Wrath does a look up, transforming directly into Squidlet himself. Him going to stand back up and attack Izuku. And the two, they do go to bring up their hands. Both of them trying to send out telekinetic attacks. As they're in the room, or the hallway they're in, it does begin to rip apart. Currently, the two going to send this force towards each other as they're colliding. And this, it is just a shockwave. Both the two being blasted backwards as Deku just smashed onto the ground. Him going to get back up and transform. Currently, Albedo going to transform directly into Humongosaur. And Deku doesn't get back up. Him looking up at Albedo as he does express, you know, he did have an idea once. The idea to be better than him with his power, be more responsible. But clearly Asmith, the first thinker, had other plans for him. And Albedo, he does a transform again, turning directly into Ultimate Humongosaur. And Deku does get a stare at that. Shit. Currently him can transform back into Big Chill, turning intangible as Albedo as to send out a massive blast and send out rockets at Izuku. Them blasting the ship and being able to do a lot of things. As currently there is the hull. Now, it does get a shake as the ship, it does be pulled. Now, there actually is over in the hangar bay, where everyone, they felt that massive explosion. And everyone, they were a bit more concerned. Bakugo getting up from his spot and seeing the two colliding. And over the ship, did begin to send out those massive alert sirens. He knew what was happening. The hull's been breached and they're losing oxygen. Bakugo, he needs to fix that problem. Or he needs to get them back into the atmosphere. Get them back on Earth. If there's oxygen, they can survive. If not, then they can't. And as I turn, looking at the robot Deku has, it's still building the ship. And it is trying to work fast. Currently it using a blowtorch and going to weld a spot together. And Bakugo, he does stare at that. Before he's going to turn and run. Okay, he's got to have a plan and he's got to do this fast. Him running. And currently he does find himself at a wall. Him going to turn. Vilgax took a path here, right? So that means the corridor is open. And Bakugo, he does try to follow the unfamiliar path. The ship has a weird layout, but he's got to get to the front. Got to get there fast. And currently, there actually is Kai. She still does lay there wounded, and Kendo looks at the power between these two species. Vilgax and an Anodite. And Mina brings her hand up, colliding an attack with Vilgax's face. Her sucker punching him across the face as he's sent flying backwards. Smashing into the wall as Mina does a flying forwards. Bring her hand up as Vilgax does a create a shield around him, and she does a smash her fist down into it. Her bring her hands backwards and colliding into it as Vilgax does a sit there. Him watching the ferocity of an Anodite. Her punching down into it over and over and over again. It beginning to crack as actually Mina does have her hair shoot down two spikes into it and then begin to rip into it. And Vilgax does a watch that as a hole can be created and it does begin to open up slowly and slowly. And this, it does mean quite a bit. Currently, another part of her hair firing down into it and looking down into Vilgax's chest. It stabbing into his side as he does scream out. And Mina does a smile before he's just saying an incantation. And Vilgax, he does get sent smashed onto the ground onto one knee. Her flying backwards and turning her head, looking at the robot. And it is still building. The spell will hold Vilgax for some time. It'll buy them time. And Chris does a look up. Those sirens aren't good. They're not great at all. And Bakugo, he does get to run into the command room. Him looking around and running over. Okay. No. Here they are. Him going to activate something. And the ship, it does begin to move. Currently, Mina turning her head and feeling this. And Bakugo, he does have the ship being piloted down into the Earth's orbit. And this, it does mean quite a bit. Currently, him having things set. Okay. The ship, it's not being held together. Him being shot to the right as you feel another massive boom. Okay, Izuku and Albedo, they're about to rip this place apart. Over the ocean, that's fine. What else can they do? Bako being shot directly in the back is a scream out before he's at turn. And Siphon, he does stand there firing laser eyes at Bakugo. And Bakugo, he does gonna fall over. Him going to bring his hand up and onto the console. Before he does, being absorb the electricity off of it. And Bakugo, he does bring his hand up. Him throwing his hand out and blasting it directly at Siphon. And Siphon is struck by the electrical attack. Him makes it flying backwards and smash into the wall. Before he's hit the ground. And Bakugo does just stand there. Him still feeling the electricity in his hand. And this, it does give him an idea. It's a bad one. A really bad one. But it might work. Osmogens can take power. They can absorb it. He can absorb Vilgax? No. Absorb the powers of the Conqueror of Worlds is a bad idea. Or maybe absorb the Ultimatrix. That's a worse idea. He's got over what, like 50, 60 aliens in there? Maybe even more than that. Izuku's certainly come a long way. Though he does have one idea. Him turning to look at Siphon. And bringing his hands down. He hasn't done this in a long time. He told himself he wouldn't do it again. Though, he's sure he'd understand. And Bakugo, he does begin to absorb Siphon's abilities. Him from the laser eyes coming in. And right now, he does gonna feel his eyes turn red. Along with that, his skin does begin to take on that of Siphon's color. Now, Bakugo, here's a turn, flying up into the air and turning, moving down the hallway fast. And there currently is Deku. Deku, he does get sent flying backwards. Currently him smashed onto the ground and going to get back up. As there is where Albedo currently is to stand there as Ultimate Echo, expressing, he really is not going to win. Does he think that this is going to be it? Does he think he is going to have anything matter? Him transforming again, expressing about how it's really useless at this point. Him bring up his hands and going to move forwards, blasting at Deku as Deku, he doesn't bring up his own hands. Currently, him going to stand there as Gravitak and transforming into the creature. Him going to move forwards and bring his hands up. And Albedo does have the rockets he sent flying at Deku spin around him and Deku to throw his other hand out. Currently, him redirecting them back at Albedo. And Albedo, he doesn't bring his hands up. Him blocking the attack as he's sent flying backwards from the strikes. And this, it does annoy him. He's got something for everything he throws at him. Or maybe not. And currently, there is Izuku. He does have another plan. Though, he does need to radio in. And currently Deku does a turn. Him transforming to accelerate and bolting his way down the ship. Him radioing in to Mina. He has an idea, but she needs to trust him. How fast is the ship being built? It's almost done. Her turning her head, looking at Vilgax, who is still trying to get to his feet as the panels below him are going to indent. They are suffering under the massive weight of the Conqueror. And she does express. She has Vilgax right where she wants him. Though, she's a bit more concerned. She's throwing power at him, but he's not going down. He's a monster. Her turning her head, and seeing the escape craft is almost complete. Talking about how it's about 90-ish so. And Deku tells her, good. He's got another idea. Albedo's too powerful, but he's egotistical. If he can get him right where he wants him, it will work. Does she trust him? I do. Why? Good. Then just, here's the plan. And we do currently cut to Albedo. Albedo, he stands there as Accelerate. him running down the ship following Izuku. And Deku, he does a finally turn, skidding to a stop as Albedo doesn't bring his hand up. Over Deku, he does a stand there, currently him with his hand over the Ultimatrix, expressing, a Keen Accelerant is fast, but is he wonder what an ultimate version of their species looks like? And Deku expresses, his friends are losing to Vilgax, and that's my concern. Why? One's an Anodite. I'm aware. Then you're aware of a lot of things. If Vilgax is as powerful as an Anodite, what does that mean? It means he's strong. His species is already in the Omnitrix. It does make me wonder what they look like too. You're gone mad with power, Albedo. You're no different from Vilgax. Don't compare me to the Conqueror. Him expressing, Vilgax is an insane bastard. And Deku tells him to look in a mirror. And Albedo does just stand there, before talking about it. Fine. What exactly does he suggest then? Him transforming into an ultimate Keen Accelerant, and Deku does a watch on. Albedo, his legs get stronger, his body grows a bit more in size, and it does going to take on a bit more of a sharper shape. Along with the fact that his tail, it does get bigger. And Deku, here's a stare on. As the Keen Accelerant in front of him, it does have claws, and its head, it's bulkier. And Deku, he looks at the way it grew in size. It's 3 times his size. And Deku, he does express, Albedo needs to calm down. And Albedo, he has a stare at Deku. Him, the size of a T-Rex. And Deku, he has a turn. Him bolting in the hallway as Albedo, he doesn't immediately going to move. Currently, him a little bit slower, but with a lot more force, a lot more strength. And Deku, he doesn't notice this. Currently, him bolting in the hallway as Albedo is right behind him. And currently, Deku, he has a turn. Him going to see Albedo as Albedo does a swing his massive tail, and Deku, he does a move up the wall. Currently, him running up it and running onto the roof. Him trying to maintain his momentum as he does to keep a point of contact. And Deku immediately does swing his body and strike Albedo in the face. Him going to turn his head and look away. And Deku does smashing down to the ground and then going to turn, telling Albedo to follow him. As Deku does a run, and there actually is Mina. Mina does a stand there, as Vilgax does a get back up and onto his feet fully, blasting at her as she does, got to bring her head up, creating a shield. And Vilgax does not watch that, before he does turn his head, expressing to her, one of her allies has abandoned her, and right now her other allies are down. One is useless. She does show prowess. He does make her this offer. Surrender and he will allow them to leave. However, Izuku Midoriya stays. Mina stares at this. It's a very bad idea. Really bad. Then again, the ship is complete. Her turning her head, and seeing the robot still doing a lot of things. Before he does, going to walk into the ship and bring his hand down, typing something in on the console. Before he does, going to turn. Him going to move out, and then going to turn to Vilgax, bring up his hands and blasting out towards him. And Vilgax does a turn. Him shooting eye lasers as one of them, leaving a fly Doki at the beam that this thing fired, and one was a turn and collide with the robot. It being struck in the chest as it be sent flying backwards and exploding. Mina stares at that. Him turning and charging up more lasers, expressing, her allies will fall. Make it easy on herself. Abandon the warrior, and fight another day. Mina stares at this. Vilgax is offering them a chance to run. He's not offering to keep them alive. If he has the Omnitrix, then he's going to win. He's going to take over Earth. Though, she trusts Izuku. Mina, she does go to express to the man to stop. Do you surrender? Her nodding her head. And Vilgax, he does stare at this. As Mina does lower her hands and tell him, let them get away. You plan to still fight? No. Good. Take your defeat with some honor. And we do currently have where the door is a slight open. And Vilgax, here's I turn his head. Currently, him seeing Ultimate Swampfire. Him dragging in Deku. Holding him up as Deku hears that blood pouring from the side of his head. Amina turns to this. Her bring her hands up as she does to stare at that. And Albedo does it to express. Look at what he caught. It took him a minute. However, it was not that challenging. And Vilgax does stare at this, before turning his head to look at Mina. And Mina, she does go to turn towards Vilgax. Him expressing, will Izuku Midoriya surrender, or is the life of his comrades too much? And Deku, he does look up, staring at Vilgax. And the man expresses to him about his options, about what he can and cannot do. And Deku, he does understand. Currently, Albedo going to throw Deku to the ground and stand there. As he does, gotta turn back into a human, expressing he will honor their deal. And Vilgax expresses he will do so. Him going to turn to Izuku, expressing he offers the life of Kentaro Midoriya in exchange for the Omnitrix. Which will he choose? His allies have already been secured, though his grandfather, that is still negotiable. And Deku looks up at Vilgax. Before he does get a fully stand up, and his body is shaking. And Izuku, that last hit, he took it a little bit harder than he wanted to. Before he's to hold his hand up and look at the Omnitrix. Before he does express to it about exactly what to do. And Vilgax does stare at this. Ken being pulled to his feet by Kendo. And Kendo does turn her head. Her aware of a few portions of this plan. Now, Kendo does go to help Ken back to his feet. Her turning and bring her hand out. Her going to elongate it and grab Kai, pulling her back up and making their way over to the ship. And Vilgax does his stare on. And Izuku, he's not going to do anything until he knows his allies are safe. And Albedo, the moment he does see that ship fly away, he has to bring his hand up. Him bringing onto Izuku's shoulder and telling him, now disengage the Omnitrix and make sure he can do this. And Deku turns to Albedo, telling him that Vilgax will kill him. He will cheat him out of his victory. And there actually is where Albedo does express to him. His victory will be returning back to the Galvan race, being the superior species once more, and no longer being this lesser life form. And Deku does a turn, expressing, maybe he's right. Then again, being the lesser life form does have its own disadvantages. Then again, it does also have its own. And Albedo does look at Deku confused. As Izuku does do one thing. He does get to tell the Omnitrix to disengage master control. Code phrase 10-01-0010. On the Omnitrix there's a beep. It's going to respond to Izuku. And Albedo does get to hear the Ultimatrix beep as well. Him looking down at his own watch. A little bit more annoyed by what that does. He can control both of their Omnitrixies. Well, that's not good. And Deku does express, bringing his hand into the watch. Currently, him going to input something for talking about it. Omnitrix, disengage current user protocol. And currently, detach from user. It's gonna beep, asking for another phrase as Deku does get to give it. Him still inputting a code on the watch, expressing. He does want it to be aware of a lot of things. Turning to Albedo. It is going to be complicated. Does he understand? Him bringing his hand up and taking off the Omnitrix. And this is where Vilgax does a smile. Deku bringing it up to the man and dropping it in his hand. And Vilgax does get a hold of it up. He is victorious, and Albedo turns to Izuku. As Deku expresses, he's missing a whole other point though. That wasn't all of his allies. Albedo confused, and their actually is Bakugo, who does get a blast Albedo directly in the back, and Albedo is shot in the back, him flying forwards onto the ground. And Vilgax, he has a turn, looking at that before looking down and putting the Omnitrix directly onto his wrist. And Deku talks about it. Bending down to Albedo. He made one mistake. Omnitrix, self-destruct sequence in 5 seconds. Now, code phrase 10. And Albedo looks up. Watching us right now, Vilgax looks down at the Omnitrix, it beeping with these new parameters, expressing detonation in 3, 2, and Vilgax is trying to input a code. Since this is not what it's going to explode looking in his face. Currently, it makes it flying backwards as Vilgax's arm, it is highly burned. And Deku turns his head, watching as Vilgax's hand falls down directly landing in front of Albedo. And Deku expresses to Albedo, bringing his hand down and smashing it directly on to his arm. Right now, he wants the Ultimatrix. It's the only thing that can save both of them. And why would I do that? Deku doesn't look at Albedo, but we're expressing to him, bringing his hand up and shoving over his face directly up, looking at Vilgax's severed hand, talking about how the Omnitrix just got blown to smithereens. And Vilgax isn't exactly the cooperative type. Right now, he can't transform. Right now, Vilgax is going to want both of their heads. So, how about he does one thing? Set aside the pride, give him the Ultimatrix, and he can stop it. This is not good. And Albedo looks at Deku. For his express, Ultimatrix, override code 10. Voice recognized. Input needed. What the? No, stop it. Override code self-destruction. Code 10. 30 seconds now. Verified. Sequence and vocal patterns recognized. Detonation in 30 seconds. You're not going to do this. Deku bring his hand up. Him grabbing Vilgax's severed hand and forcing it to Albedo's face. Talking about it. Right now they don't have very much time. And their action is Vilgax, who does going to get back to his feet and bring his hand down. Him going to bring his arm up and look at the severed limb Deku just caused him. Because he blew up the only device in the universe he wanted. However, there is still one replacement. A backup. And Vilgax, he's a fully stand. Him gonna turn and rush towards the two. And there actually is Mina, who's a bring her hands up and create a construct around Vilgax. Currently, Vilgax being encased in a box as he smashes his fist out and onto it. Him bringing the severed limb and smashing the stub against the Anodite creation. And Albedo does not watch on. Him looking at that before looking back down at Deku. Expressing, he's bluffing. Give him back master control. And Deku stares at Albedo. Expressing, no. You're an idiot. You're a fool. You'll kill us both. 15 seconds remaining. 14, 13, 12, 11. Give it back. Deku is staring at Albedo. And Albedo does express, fine. Just get off his hand. And Deku, he does do so. Albedo brings up his hand and pressing the button. The Ultimatrix going to expand his Deku, going to bring it up and immediately rip it off of Albedo's arm. Him shoving it onto his hand and going to press the button. It going to form around Izuku's arm as he's going to begin to input the code to stop the self-destruct sequence. And then he does going to stare at it. And Albedo does it to watch on. As Deku, he immediately does look up. Currently Vilgax breaking through the glass as Deku, he does begin to do one thing. Currently him inputting the code for master control. And there actually is Bakugo, who we're going to run up. Currently him going to bring his hand up and maybe throw his fist out, punching Deku. However, he's a shove him out of the way as Vilgax just smash his fist out and immediately smash into Bakugo. Bakugo going to be sent flying backwards and smashing into the wall. Him going to hit the ground very hard. And Vilgax does a look back down at Albedo. Before he does, gonna bring his hand down and grab the creature. Him pulling him up and screaming at him about exactly the failure he's caused him. And Deku, he is still standing there. Before he does, going to input the last part of the phrase in sequence for magic control. Before it does, go to glow again. And Deku immediately does a think, swamp fire. Before it's a transform. And Vilgax does a turn his head looking at Deku. And the ship is going to have a siren blare. Before we do cut back to the cockpit, where Siphon, he does go to input the codes for the self-destruct sequence to the ship. They're already in Earth atmosphere. They're already here. And he is not going to follow the Mad Titan Vilgax. He is not going to follow the Conqueror of Worlds. He is a madman, obsessed with a device he may never obtain. And this is the perfect opportunity. The Omnitrix was just destroyed. He has a chance to escape, make his own way as a conqueror, make his own way as a villain. And currently Siphon, he does gonna put down the timer. 5 minutes till detonation. And Deku, he does stand there. Currently him as Swampfire as Vilgax does a rush towards Izuku. And Deku, he does bring his hand up. Him tapping onto the Ultra Matrix and beginning to transform. And Izuku, he does turn Dorky into Ultimate Swampfire. Vilgax rushing at him and bringing back the nub and holding his arm out. Blood flying as Vilgax does a throw his forwards and Deku does a catch it. For bringing his other hand up and blasting Vilgax dead center in the face. And Vilgax isn't flying backwards. Him smashing down and being covered in blue flames. And Deku does a turn, yelling out for both of them to get off the ship. There's not a lot of time. He'll keep Vilgax busy. Izuku, what about you? Everyone else is off. We need to get going. Move! And the two, they do get up. And Deku, here's a turn to Bakugo. Bakugo yelling that there's no one in the blast range. And Deku, here's a turn. Looking at Bakugo, I'm going to smile. Telling him to get her out of here. And make sure she is okay. And Bakugo, he is limping. And currently, there is where he has a look up. Him blasting his laser eyes down the hallway at some of the things they're still trying to fight them. And Deku, here's a turn. As Albedo, he does sit there. Currently him going to try and climb to his feet as his wounds are bad. And Deku, he does think about it. He has a chance right now. Him turning back to Vilgax. Kill? No. Kill Albedo or fight Vilgax. This, he can do both of. Him gonna turn, walking over and grabbing Albedo. Him grabbing him by the shirt and tossing him backwards back into the room. And the ship, it's already beginning to go down. It currently submerging into the ocean as everyone, they do feel the ship rock. And Deku does stand there. Currently, him bringing his hand up and looking at Albedo. Looking at another version of himself. And Albedo looks up at Izuku. His eyes showing anger. But most importantly, they show fear. And Deku, he does turn his head. Closing his eyes and blasting down Dorky Albedo. And this, it does mean a bit. And Izuku, he has to open his eyes. Him turning and looking at Vilgax. As Vilgax, he has to climb back to his feet. Him currently in a puddle of water, which is beginning to rise fast. Expressing, he really has turned into quite the warrior, hasn't he? However, with that destruct sequence, it is going to be the death of both of them. They both need to escape, live to fight another day. Not a chance. Vilgax, I'm not letting you run from this. No more. Vilgax looking at Deku. 3 minutes and 38 seconds remaining. 37, 36. Deku bringing his hands up, grabbing the pods from his shoulders and throwing them out forwards. Currently, there being Vilgax, who's to bring his hands up to the bombs due to go off on his body. Before he does, gonna have Deku rush forwards and bring his hands up, uppercutting Vilgax, and Vilgax is smashing her into the wall. Him cracking the glass of the ship as he does a smash on the ground. And Deku does a look on at Vilgax. Currently, him having one idea go through his mind. And there is Bakugo and Mina. Mina did go to bring her hand up. Her blasting the whole of the ship as she did go to bring Bakugo up with her. And the two begin to fly up, though she had her own concerns. If Deku can get out, if Vilgax would survive, if both of them would survive. Though she trusts Izuku. She trusts him with her entire being, her whole heart. And right now Deku, he does stand there. Currently, him staring at Vilgax as he's going to bring his hand up. Him tapping onto the Ultimatrix and going to transform back into Swampfire. Tapping on it again and going to transform directly into Echo Echo. And Vilgax does go rushing forwards. Deku splitting into multiple parts as he's immediately screaming out at Vilgax. And Vilgax would bring his hand up, covering one of his ears, feeling the ringing reverberating through his body. And Deku does stare at this, the glass breaking more. And Izuku, he is backing away. He's losing more and more ground the further this ship is sinking into the ocean. 3 minutes remaining. Deku staring at Vilgax. And currently Vilgax, he does go to smirk. The glass cracking more as the room begins to flood fast. And the man, he does stare at Izuku. Him beginning to take on his other form. And Vilgax does begin to grow in size. And Deku, he does stare on at this. Since right now this was not what he expected. And Deku, he does bring his hand up. Currently all the Echo Echoes going to split more, screwing out more of Vilgax as Vilgax is going to throw out his tendrils. Him smashing the Echo Echoes as many of them, they're just smashing the wall and be destroyed. Them poofing out of existence. And the last Echo Echo here does bring his hand up, tapping onto the Ultimatrix and going to transform again. And Vilgax does watch on, as Ultimate Echo Echo does stand there. Him going to throw his tendrils as Deku does throw up his hands. Him blasting out massive amounts of sound as Vilgax is shoved backwards. And Izuku, he does stare at that, bringing his hands up and blasting out more and more. And Izuku, he does have a plan. He does have one other idea. They're talking about a bomb, right? A self-destruct sequence? Maybe. Maybe he could survive it. Maybe not. This is the worst option. It could be the best. And Izuku, he does transform again. Currently him thinking in his mind, atomics. And going to do one thing. Flying up into the air and bringing his hands up. Vilgax watching Izuku as Deku just blasts his hands down at Vilgax. And Vilgax is shot directly in the being and smashed further into the wall. Deku blasting out more and more power. And Izuku, he does it to watch the water begin to boil into steam. The room filling with this. And Izuku, he does a turn. Him having one idea, bringing his hand up and cutting his way directly into the ceiling. And Vilgax does throw his tendrils as they move down the hallway, them wrapping their tendrils around Atomics, and Deku does a turn, staring at that. Before he does, go do one thing. He's going to transform into Gravitak. Him going to form his body into a ball. Him slicing into and hitting into Vilgax's leg. It going to slice the tendril as it does go to hold on to Izuku. And Deku just going to throw himself forward. Currently, him having Vilgax get pulled up into the air with the water. And Deku, he has to open up and then expand. Him throwing his hands around as Vilgax is shoved backwards down to the ground. And Deku does stare at this before he does a turn and fly. Currently, him going to fly back in the hallway. Him trying to stay on dry land. Deku unfolding and spinning, bringing his hands up as Vilgax, his tendrils were flying at Izuku. And Deku, he is going to hold them back with the power of gravity. Currently, him staying there, as is it here 1 minute remaining, over the intercom. And Deku is trying to think about what to do. Vilgax is still inside the ship. He won't let him escape. There's a bomb aboard. This thing is going to go nuclear. So yeah, maybe he needs a little bit of nuclear. And Deku is flying backwards. Currently him throwing himself into a ball as Vilgax is ripped out of the water. And Deku is flying backwards as Vilgax, he does try to move backwards. Move away. Fight Izuku. But the gravitational pull of Gravitak is too strong. The Vilgax is forced on a dry land as Deku just fly down the hallway, closer to the power source of the ship. And Deku, the moment he does a tumbling down the hallway, he does a spin, releasing the gravity as Vilgax is flying past him. And Deku, he does a transform. Him gonna fly around and stand there as Atomics. Him blasting his hands at Vilgax. And Vilgax is sent flying backwards towards the center of the ship. And the man, he does gonna take the attack and smash on the hallway. And Deku, he does fly there in the air. Him hearing 50 seconds. As Deku to stare at Vilgax, him flying towards his Vilgax, just him rushing in the hallway as a giant kraken-like monster. And Deku, he does a smash right into Vilgax. Vilgax smashing Atomics back down and onto the ground of the ship. Before, he has a turn. Him looking up and going to make his way further back down. And Izuku, he has a grab one of Vilgax's legs. Him holding onto it as he tries to fly backwards. And Vilgax does a turn. Him going to do one thing. Currently, him going to bring his hand up. As right now his tendrils, they are not moving. Him going to have to bite the tendril off with a massive beak. And this, it does surprise Deku. Him letting go of the tendril as Vilgax is falling backwards. Deku blasting out at Vilgax as right now to take the massive run to force. And Deku is flying forwards, bringing his hands over his head and burying Vilgax down into the steel of the ship. Him going to just charge him full of nuclear energy, blasting it down at point blank range. And Deku, he doesn't hear it. 30 seconds remaining. And we do actually have outside the ship. Right now, Mina and Bakugo do float there in the air. And Mina is still concerned. The Bakugo, he is trying to deal with his internal injuries. He's trying to make sure he might not die. That punch from Vilgax was hard. Very hard. And right now he does worry about Izuku. Though he's also worrying about Kai. Since she took a pretty nasty shot from the Tyrant. And we do currently have Deku, who does gonna bring his hands back and force his jet boot directly down to Vilgax's face, ripping two of the tendrils away. Hearing 15 seconds remaining. And Deku, here's a turn, bring his hand up, blasting directly into the air. Currently, him gonna watch water begin to funnel into the ship as Deku looks down. Him flying up into the air as Vilgax does to wrap his legs around Deku again. Him encasing Atomics in tendrils. And Deku, he does look back down. Him staring at Vilgax and bringing his hands up. Currently, Deku going to let a massive blast as their exit outside, where Mina does a watch on. Currently, there being a massive rush as the water is a massively begin to expand, and she doesn't hear the sound, as a brilliant flash can be seen underwater. Her bringing her hand up and turning, her creating a massive barrier and covering her and Bakugo in a bubble. Before Bakugo, he doesn't cover his eyes. And Mina does face away, and the blast can be heard, along with the massive way the water moved. And Mina does that turn back. Her watching this water is being to fill this massive hole that was in the ocean. And she does a turn, looking down as it does begin to rain. And this, it does alarm her. And Bakugo, he does look up, before he does look back down. There's no way. And Mina, her eyes do begin to glow. Her trying to focus, trying to think about what she saw. No, there's no way. Izuku got out. Izuku got out. She knows he got out. Her trying to read mana. Trying to read Izuku's mana anywhere in the area. Seeing if he might be here, alive. If he made it. And this does have her concerned. Her best friend might have just got caught in that blast. And she is worried. Her going to fly down with Bakugo, seeing debris surface from the water. And this does have her highly alarmed. Currently her landing on a massive piece of it and going to turn. Asking Bakugo if he's going to be okay. She's got to go down there. Try and find him. Try and see if he's okay. And Bakugo looks up at her. The Bakugo, he does have his eyes show sadness. Him looking back down as he has a hold onto this piece of metal. The piece of floating debris. what might remain of Vilgax's ship. And Mina does a turn, her focusing her innate abilities and trying to keep her composure, trying her best. But this is her best friend. This is her. This is her hearing a sound before she's to turn and bring her hand up. And Deku, he currently does have his arm bring itself over and grab onto a piece of debris. As currently he does go flying up into the air and going to stand there. Currently, Mina watching atomics float there in the air. However, Deku, he is at a land. Him expressing about how he managed to escape the evildoer's clutches just before detonation. And Mina stares on, her happy. And Deku, he currently does a fall forwards. Him de-transforming as Mina does a flyover, her bending and grabbing Izuku. And Deku, he currently fell unconscious. And she was highly worried. He's bleeding from his head. Along with that, the injuries he might have suffered from this battle. The fact that he's alive. It makes her happy. And currently she has a turn, flying over and helping Bakugo back up, creating a platform for him as Bakugo. He does go to sit there, talking about exactly how much he thinks some of this stuff might sell for. And she doesn't laugh. Currently the three flying back to a former base. And Izuku, he is giving medical attention. He bruised a lot of ribs. He almost broke a few bones. He had a laceration on his forehead. Along with that, he was bruised, black and blue almost all over. He's alive. I mean, Atomics is a very powerful alien. The assumption right now is that Izuku, he tried to outrun the nuclear blast. But because of the makeup of this alien, he survived. I mean, Atomics is a living reactor. So, pretty good timing, I guess. And there actually is Izuku. Izuku, he does wake up hours later. Him opening his eyes as he does go try and sit up. Him going to do so as he doesn't grunt. And Izuku, he does go to sit there. Him bringing his hand up to his head and finding a bandage there. Him looking around. Because the last thing he remembers is Vilgax. And the last thing he clearly remembers is putting up that barrier. He saw the Conqueror of Worlds right up close and personal. He faced him. And he just looked death in the face with the man. And Deku, he has to hear somebody, as he has to turn his head and watch a plumber currently step out of the room. And Deku, he does sit there. Before he is a turn, looking at his hand and remembering the events. Because this bigger, bulkier device on his wrist is not the Omnitrix. And Deku, he does sit there, gathering his thoughts as right now some people do come walking in. And Deku turns, as currently the person does go express, standing before Izuku, asking him exactly how he is doing. I'm a bit banged up, I guess, but I feel alright. Yes, you have been given the appropriate medication for your species. I was wondering what this IV was for. This is the time to be serious, Agent Midoriya. I am a proctor, and I'm aware you may know what that means. Yes. I'm sorry. You defied orders. You went against regulations, interfered with an active investigation, called on an agent who was medically unsupervised, if not medically unfit to lead, if not participate in your actions, and then you went against Vilgax. However, your actions today, they produce more good. It was personal. I'm aware of your track record, Mr. Midoriya. You have quite the extensive list. You faced off against a number of threats and dealt with a number of things on your missions. Not only for the plumbers, but on planet-side evaluations. Fact of the matter is, Izuku. May I call you Izuku? Yes, you may. Izuku, the people in charge, they want to see what you can do. The Magistrata was worried after seeing you go across their desk. Along with that, there is the fact that many of the magisters on your base, they wish to have you court-martialed. And what do you say to that? I say I killed Vilgax. You believe you killed Vilgax. There are many people who have made that claim. Your grandfather has made that claim twice in his lifetime. And as far as I'm aware, you believe that claim to be true twice as well now. Along with the fact that you have chucked him into the null void as, I believe, an alien you call way big. Yes, that report is highly accurate. I see. Mr. Midoriya, you've done a number of things today that would have you court-martialed. But the good you have done in the universe, it's much more than that. On behalf of the plumbers, I'd wish to say, we appreciate what you have done for us. However, the search for the remnants of Vilgax's ship continue, along with a proper body. Do you have anything to say about this? No. If I managed to survive that blast, I'm sure pieces of him did. Pieces of him? Yes. Me and Vilgax had a battle after everyone cleared out. I showed little restraint. Albedo, an enemy that wears my face. He was there with the Ultimatrix. Deku holding up his wrist. This device here. I took his life. Did you now? Yes. Earlier today he attacked the plumber base. It would have collapsed if I didn't intervene. He gave me an ultimatum. Protect this place or watch it fall. I followed orders. I defied them, however, when it came to family. I see. Rest up, Agent Midoriya. There may be many other things in your future you have to deal with. Now, I will give you leave. Rest up. You are one of our best agents on planet Earth. Also, then going to turn, expressing congratulations. Them going to leave. And Deku, he doesn't stand and climb out of bed. Him feeling the pain shooting through him as Deku hears a look around. Him seeing his jacket and seeing a few of his other clothes. Deku going to pull off this robe as right now he doesn't get dressed. Him going to stuff the morphine bag into one of his pockets. Because right now, he's pretty sure this is the only thing that's helping him right now. He feels like shit. Though at the same time, he's $10,000. And Deku, he is doing his best to keep his thoughts focused. Him beginning to limp out of his room. And some people, they do see him walking down the hallway. People stepping aside and letting him move. However, Deku, he does limp, rather proud. He believes today he killed Vilgax, but there's always that small little margin for error. He's a fucking cockroach. He finds a way to survive every single time. And unless they find a body, unless they find a brain, they won't believe he's dead. And Izuku, he needs to at least believe that assumption. Believe that's true. Because if it isn't, then Vilgax is going to need to be taken down. He thought he tore him to shreds this time. But next time, if there is a next time, it's definitely going to be different. Deku going to sit down in his room. Currently, him just going to lay backwards on his bed. And Izuku, he does think about a few things. Currently, him bringing his hand up and pulling out the IV from his wrist. Thinking about it. Okay, he just needs to sleep. That damn thing keeps stabbing him. Okay, maybe the best thing to do right now is to sleep. Right. Him bringing his hand up and feeling the bandage on his head. Albedo got him pretty good. Though he's gone now. He did it. He stopped this stupid fucking prophecy. Grandpa's alive. He's alive. The ultimate enemy isn't. And Vilgax is gone. Maybe. Maybe not. That part he's still concerned about. And Izuku, he does it to hear a sound. Him turning his head and going to stand. Him walking over to his door and pressing the button. As the moment is to open, Eunice does come stepping forwards. Her wrapping Deku in a hug, and Deku, he does it a wince. Him telling her, "Stop. Sorry." Her pulling back. "Are you okay? The ribs are bruised. They'll all be fine. I just need to lay down." Deku looking up. Not only seeing that Eunice is here, but seeing Mina and Kendo. Oh, no. What are you guys doing here? Listen, I've got to rest up. I know. I wanted to make sure you were okay. Deku turning his head, looking at Mina. As she's to express, she was concerned. She thought he might have actually died back there. I'm tough. Trust me. I'm turning to Kendo, talking about it. He'll be okay, though. Don't take it personally. He's taking some pretty hard knocks. Plus, well, he kind of has a guarantee he might be okay. The future thing? Sort of. Listen. I don't mean to make jokes about it. I just want to be left alone. A lot happened down there. But what about Albedo and Vilgax? What about them? I know Albedo won't be a concern. Mina's staring at Deku, and Kendo stares at him. As Deku, he looks a little sad. He looks a little disturbed saying that. And it clicks in her mind, as Eunice does to go talk about it, asking if he's sure he's alright. I'll be okay, Eunice. I just gotta sleep it off. I'm sure the plumbers will give me time for this. Where's Luma and Tatea? The two are dealing with a few things. Though, Izuku, can I talk to you personally? Okay, but why are these two here? Oh, I probably should get that out of the way. Me, Kendo, and Eunice talked about it. You did? Talked about what exactly? Well, Izuku, you know that deal you are deliberating on? Yeah, 4 chicks want to share me. Actually, Izuku, it's 5. Deku turning to Eunice. 5? Really? Him looking at Mina. And she does go to smile. Talking about it. It's weird. She knows. But I mean, hey. 2 of them are for Earth. It's beneficial. Besides, all of them do like him. Right. Luma likes me because I can nearly kill her. Atea likes my power. And you three? We like the original model. Sure you do. Him turning, and Kendo does a smile, talking about how he's a good guy. Besides, Eunice was the one who suggested this in the first place. She's okay with it. Really? I'm still learning a lot about Earth. Besides, Kendo's nice, she's cool, and Mina, I feel like she's a good person. You're right about that. Besides, it can't be that bad. Yeah, I'm still not too sure how to deal with all this. Mina's stepping forwards and expressing to Izuku, listen, she's not trying to pressure him into this. Maybe talk about it tomorrow, but if he agrees to it, then Luma and Atea, they have to play by his rules. Besides, they might try to alter the contract right now still, but they've been made aware about her, Izuku's latest girl. Right. Okay. I'm sorry. It might just be my painkillers, but this is super trippy. It is, Izuku. Listen, think it over and answer tomorrow. Okay? I'm gonna be here on Earth. I'm gonna continue my training here and hopefully figure some things out. If you want to learn about Anidites, tell me. Otherwise, I'll be in my quarters meditating. Still off duty. We're gonna turn. Before, we're gonna turn back to Izuku and walk over, pulling him into a hug, and Deku does this all wince. Her pulling back talking about it. She could heal him, you know. Then again, maybe, well, you know, let him get his energy back first. We're gonna turn, and quickly gonna leave. And Kendo does it a watch. Eunice stepping forward talking about how she doesn't want to spend time with him. She had the idea to see a movie? Sure. Though, maybe I might just fall asleep right now. I don't care. Deku watching. Kendo going to express. She'll let him rest up. Though, her gonna turn, telling Eunice to let him get some sleep. It's probably the best idea. Then again, maybe he really shouldn't be alone right now. Especially, because of Albedo. You sure? I'm positive on that, Eunice. Take care of him. Also, don't hurt him too much. What do you mean? He just got into a really bad fight. I mean, be careful with him. He's like brittle glass. Oh, I'll be careful. Her bring her hands up. And Kendo does sort of like Eunice. She's like a, well, sister she never had. She's happy. A little overly so sometimes, but hey, she's getting used to Earth. Still trying to figure out their planet. And sometimes she feels like she's in the same boat. And Deku, he doesn't lay down. Kendo, turning, and talking about how if he does want to talk, he has her number. Her gonna leave his Deku does lay back down. Still with those thoughts in his mind about what's happening. And Eunice does just sit there, asking Izuku if he does need anything other than a nap. Or is he just gonna be doing that? And Izuku, he already passed out. As Eunice does that turn, grabbing the remote and turning on Deku's TV. Before she's to turn back to Izuku and go to lay down. Her going to crawl over the other side of Izuku and bring her hands up, holding onto him as she tries to stare at the TV. Her turning down the volume a bit and looking at Zuko, who does sleep a little heavily, as she does begin to watch the show. And with that being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed, and have an amazing day. And this might actually be the longest video on my channel right now. Have a good one.